Hi, I'm Jennifer Ackerman-Haywood from CraftSanity, and I am back with a tutorial on how to make infant hats on the CraftSanity hat loom. So as you can see, this is configured in a way where we have an 8-inch piece here, and we have one on the end, and then what we've done is we've used the adjustable, a bunch of holes there. You can adjust it. We have not the smallest setting, but the second smallest setting here. And we've just fastened this in here with the wing nuts, and we're only going to weave on this portion. So the fact that we don't have an end piece here, no worries there, because we're not using that part of the loom. Okay, so to get started, we're going to start this the way we start every other project on this loom. We're going to tie on the yarn. And we're going to loosen that wing nut. And tighten it back on the yarn there. Okay, and that's going to hold it in place. And now we're going to warp the loom by just going around the peg. So you go straight down from where you knotted it down to that first peg, up and around, and we're going to just keep doing that all the way across the loom. We're going to keep things nice and loose. Not too loose, but there should be some tension on the loom, but not too much. Peg. We're going to go around that last peg, up and around the top peg, and then because we're using a chunky yarn, this is pretty bulky, so when I'm using the bulky yarns, I do not use the end, the 4 corner pegs. So we're going to go into that second peg, wrap around, and then hold this together, hold it like a loop here on the end, and put it around that corresponding peg. And to make this look like our first row of weaving, we've gone over this, and we're going to weave this as a single strand over here. Everything else gone over this first strand. That means I'm going to take this loop off and put it over. I'm going to go do that for every other one here. Just lifting it off and putting it down. If you do let go of it, sometimes you lose your grip and it goes flinging back. No worries, just pick it up and put it back on the peg. Okay. Okay, so now that we have, this is our first row, and this is a good time to check your work to make sure it is every other one. And then I'm going to grab, I'm just using a 12-inch ruler here. This is a wooden ruler. I like this because it fits between the pegs, and I'm going to use this as a shed stick. And that is basically I'm going to feed it through the same way that I did over the same way I did to get that first strand. Okay, so we have this, I'm going to move this down. And when I want to open it, I can go like this, or I can just leave it sitting right in the top. That's creating a separation here. Okay, so now for my second pass here through, I'm going to do the opposite of what I did in that first row. So I'm going to reach in here and grab the strands I need to go under. And at this width, I usually can do this in just, I do 2 groupings. And then I let my yarn arc up a little bit and then just push it down. And I can tighten it up a little bit here, but you don't want to tighten it super tight. You want it to be loose because you want that finished hat to still have some give to it and fit on the child's head. Otherwise you'll end up with something you can put on a doll, which might be what you're going for. Okay, so this time I'm going back through here, and I can reach across when it's that open shed. That's pretty easy to do. I usually don't reach as far when I'm picking up on every other one. It's a little bit slower. Okay, so now we're to the point where we don't have room to keep that in, so we're going to take that out and just weave the rest. And once you get the hang of this, you can weave these hats pretty quickly. Okay, so once we get to the point where all the weaving is done, We're going to pull this, just kind of even this out a little bit here. It's going to all pull in, so it's not really a huge deal. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Check for any mistakes. If you have a mistake, you can loosen, like you say there's a mistake in this row. You don't have to pull it all out to this row. You just pull this row out and redo it. And you would probably want to use a crochet hook if you find a mistake there to kind of redo that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim this. I'm going to cut the yarn and grab the scissors over here. I only have 50 pair off to the side here. Never have too many pairs of scissors. Okay. Now we have that single strand. If you look closely, you can see this is just a single strand down here, right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to double that up. You're not going around any pegs. It just went from here just under, and I'm just following the same weave under over weave pattern as this single strand. And I just keep making sure that I'm not pulling that too tight, because you don't want to have it. I'm going to keep everything fairly loose. Alright, so we're going to let this yarn tail just hang out right there. I'm going to now loosen that wing nut and unwrap that and tighten it back up. Just going to let that be. Okay, so what we're going to do now, the brim of the bottom edge of the hat is right here. So this is one edge in the back or front, and this is the other. So what we need to do is fasten, remove those loops from the loom so we can then flip this piece of fabric in half to make our hat. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start over here and work toward the yarn tail. So I'm going to just take that first loop off, pick up the second one, put it through the first, and continue in that pattern all the way down. So pick up the loop, pull it through, get the next one. You can do this without a crochet hook, but I really recommend a crochet hook because it just makes things go easier. Okay, and then right here, you can ignore this and just let it hang there, but I like to pull up the loop. It kind of anchors that yarn a little bit better. You don't have to worry about it unraveling in any way. Then you pick up one loop off the side here, pull it through, return the loop back to the side of the loom. Okay, so we're good to go here. Now we're going to flip this loom around, and once again I'm going to start working from this side toward the side with the yarn tail. Just pulling up the first loop, pull the second one off and through the first, continue all the way down. Okay, and then we're going to pick up the yarn tail here, pull a loop up, and then take that first side loop, pull it through, and return it to the peg. Now that we've finished off our top and bottom edges, we're ready to start picking up these loops. And remember, since we're in the second to last hole in this series, we're going to be in the second to last pair of these color-coded pegs that mark the halfway point based on what size hat you're making. So we're going to start here and pull up these loops and put them onto the holder. And we're going to go to that first white peg, and we're going to secure this. And then what we're going to do is take another holder and pop these off. And we're going to stop doing that in the same spot. We're going to stop at that first white one. And we're going to close the... So right now we have half of our fabric is still connected, half of it is now free to move around. We're going to flip that over, and now what this is going to allow us to do, we're going to open the stitch holder again here, and you're going to just put one loop on top of all the loops that are on the loom. Alright, do that one more time over here. Okay, now it's time to take our crochet hook again, and we are going to work, this is the open edge. So what we're going to do here is we're going to work from the top, we're going to work from the fold, and we're going to work toward the bottom edge of the hat. And the reason why we're going to do that is because if we work this way, we're going to be left with one loop and nothing to pull through it. We're going to work from each side down to the corners, so we have that yarn tail to help us fasten off that last loop. So we're going to grab the top loop and then the bottom loop, pull the bottom one through the top, and then move over to the next peg and pull that loop through. This one will look like it's kind of loose. It's okay. You've already looped it through. Just let it go. Don't worry about it. You're going to just take whatever the next loop available to pull off is, pull that through the one on your hook. Making our way to the last couple pegs here, we're going to keep doing pulling those loops through, and keep doing that until you get to the last loop. Pull it through, and then take your yarn tail and pull that all the way through. Okay, so that side of the hat is done. This side seam is done. Now what we're going to do is move across here, pull the top one up, keep just pulling these loops through. So you pull that bottom one through the top one, move to the next peg, pull the top one through, grab the next loop. Okay, so that last loop, we're going to pull this yarn tail through like so. And so we have our, move the loom aside, and we're now off the loom. This is the inside of the hat, and you can check out there seems to be a little bit of a height difference between the two sides. You can go right back in to where you were and reach across here and pull up a loop and pull it through. And then you can pull the yarn tail through again. And that just gives it kind of one more way to secure it in place.
This next one a little slower.
Okay, so in this case I'd like to connect again over here. So I'm going back in underneath that last loop, and I'm just holding that yarn off to the side. I'm just going to reach across over here, pull up a loop, and pull it straight through, and pull it all the way through again. Okay, so it still has some stretch to it, but I've fastened it, and so it's secure. It's not going to come undone. Okay, now what I'm going to do is weave in the yarn tails. So I'm just following the weave structure along the side edge, and I'm just going to reach through and pull my crochet hook all the way up. And again, you just want to make sure you're not pulling too tightly. And I try to go far enough that if I roll up the edge of this, I'm not going to have it showing out the bottom. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to trim that off. Move that out to the side here. Okay, and this one, I'm going to just flip it over, do the same thing. Just pull that through. You just want to go high enough so if you do roll up the edge, you're not going to have the yarn showing. Okay, remember this is the inside of the hat, so alright, so we're going to turn it right side out now. And we have a couple options. If you put this on a child's head, it's going to look like a little cat hat, like that. You can roll up the bill a little bit and put that on a baby's head. if you decide, you know, I'd like to kind of round things out a little bit, you can come back in here and we'll just use a little piece of, we'll do this with the pink yarn so you can see. It's the same technique for all the sizes of hats that we make with the hat loom. What I'm doing is coming in here and I'm following the same weave pattern as one of the strands of the green that went through. Just following this. It's actually a double strand going through. I'm just following this along. You can double up your yarn if you want, but I've been using a single strand to gather the top, and that's been working fairly well for me, so I haven't had any problems yet. So okay, so now I have the yarn through here. So now what I can do is I can gather, just gently pull on each side, and if the looser you keep it, the bigger the hat will be. You'll have still some room. If you make it really super duper tight, it's going to pull in so tight that the child's head will not be able to fit all the way to the top of the hat. So you want to give it, you know, leave some room so it's not too tight. And then I'm just tying a bow here. Tie a bow until you got the size, you're happy with the size, and then you can come in and knot it so it stays. And another note too, if you're going to do this and you don't want to see this yarn, just use the same color, but for the tutorial purposes, because you can see you can see it a little bit, but it's not that noticeable. Okay, so we have a hat here. You could add a little pom-pom on here if you wanted. Just whatever you put on a baby's hat, though, make sure it's secure and there are no buttons or anything that the child could choke on. You got to be real careful about that. So you could wear it, well, the baby could wear it like this, or you could roll it up, depending on how big the child is. And as the child grows, you can move this up and make hats that would give a little more room for the child to grow. So there you go. You have a couple options there of what you can do for a kid-size hat. And these are great to get together with a church group or you're just a group of friends and make hats for the preemies as well at the hospital or any other just kids you know. It's a nice little gift for a baby.